sweet compassion when my soul's in need. I find compassion for friends and enemies. My own compassion is where my spirit breathes.
Live from Santa Barbara, welcome to Compassionate Connection. I'm your hostess, Gigi Amor, and I'd like to share with you the purpose of our show, which is to communicate in a way where we are effective at getting everybody's needs met and contributing to other people's well-being in that process. Now, we have this language of peace that we talk about. We have a guest that's an expert on this, and I'm thrilled that she dared to come back with us on air tonight. Susan Allan, thank you for being with us, Susan. This is based on that language of life, that language of peace, and it's a way to transform our thinking and enrich our lives so we have a more wonderful world and we're all happy. How about that? Now, tonight I'm really excited. We're going to explore something that is very important. It has to do with relationships. Susan is indeed an expert on all of this. And so tonight's title of our show is Solutions to Disastrous Marriages. Now that we have your attention, I'm going to share with you a bit about Susan. Now, our guest, Susan Allan, is indeed America's leading marriage and divorce coach and the founder of the Marriage Forum. Susan is the author of 3 books, and Susan is also a certified mediator and has created the 6-part conversation that allows us to create peaceful and cooperative conversations with everyone under every situation, even during separation and divorce. Susan has been seen on Fox News and on hundreds of television and radio shows demonstrating the results we can create when we transform the way we think, listen, speak, and act, and focus on solutions instead of on problems. Also, Susan offers a complimentary 1-hour private telephone session so that everyone can transform their lives, their families, and their future. Oh my gosh, you work magic and you do have this information. I would just like to explain to everyone that Susan has been working over the years, well actually since 1999, with thousands of clients. And every year she trains clients to resolve the really difficult marriage, separation, or divorce situation that they are in. And when she trains us to use more of our whole brain to really think, she is supporting us to become more successful, figuring out what strategy would create more peace, and then showing us how to do it. You will be amazed, as I am, by some of the things that she teaches us to create more peaceful and powerful lives. That's quite a mouthful, Susan, and I know
Yes.
you just love
Yes, it
what
is.
you're doing. You've been working towards this, and the transformation that you've shared with so many people that you've been involved with has just been awesome. I'm
You've
so
even
excited.
met some of them, so you know.
There you go. It's just really life enriching. And everybody can be open for this, and everybody, I know I'm still working on issues. She's very patient, I can confess. I know by experience.
We're all a work in progress.
There you go. Well, we're going to have fun tonight. I know we've created all of these questions for sharing with everybody how you really can make their life more wonderful.
Yes.
So we're excited
Truly.
to get going. That's right. Every day, every minute of every day.
Yeah.
Now, I wonder if you'd be willing to go ahead and just share with us, is there a common denominator for women who are struggling with suffering in a marriage?
Yes, they definitely need some new skills. They definitely are not using whole brain thinking. They're not able to be logical, and/or they're not able to be practical and organized and plan things out for the future, and/or they're not able to connect deeply enough and happily and peacefully enough, and/or they're not able to stick with it and stay really focused on what needs to happen in their marriage. So any one of those 4 different challenges could be there, or to some degree they all could be there.
And so with speaking with you, I know that you can break through where there might be some struggles with that and help
Sure.
to give them that clarity.
Sure, and point out what's not working, and then give them the skills they need to have that area work.
What a gift. Thank you, Susan. And I'm curious, what would you say that most women, let's say, who find themselves in a big trouble in a marriage, need to learn new skills in order to solve their problems? What would you share with these women?
Well, most of the people who come to me, and I'm not saying all the people who have this problem, but most of the people who come to me in all these years, so 15 years, the common denominator is that they're too emotional. So either the marriage was a bad idea, but they didn't see it because they were so emotional, they were carried off into this marriage, and now they're in it and they don't know what to do. So then now they have to learn how to be more rational and more practical so that I can teach them communication skills so they can get themselves out of it and still be, safe and intact. Some people have a great marriage, but they're living on such an emotional roller coaster. They're so emotional that they take what's a really good marriage and they just are ruining it with a lot of drama that their partner can't endure. So the common denominator in those 2 is teaching these women how to be peaceful, teaching them how to really be calm and calming and reassuring for their spouse and for their children.
The ultimate relationship. You can help people create that within themselves so they can share it with their loved ones. I really appreciate that. Now let's explore this. What are the worst side effects for people who won't study and learn how to achieve their whole brains and really have the ability to think clearly?
Bad divorces, really bad divorces. And of course I get a lot of calls from people who are on the verge of a very costly, disastrous divorce. And the common denominator is that, they didn't have the logical skills getting in. So either they, didn't position themselves financially in a way that was safe, or maybe they had a career and they just gave it up, hoping that, their spouse was going to take care of everything. And that's the number 1 mistake that women make, even today. It's not 1814, it's not 1914, Here we are in 2014, and the biggest mistake that women make even today is they have magical thinking about how they're going to survive financially. And then they're not even nice to their husband who's making all the money and sharing it with them. So at least if you have magical thinking about money and you don't want any part of it, and you have some fantasy that you can just have children and then your money problems will disappear, magically, right?
Right.
At least be appreciative to the person who's bringing in all the money, working all day long, every day to bring in the money and keep a job or a company going. But they're not. And that's the biggest confusion. Because without rational thinking, without logical thinking, of course they don't have the understanding of what it takes to bring in the money each and every month, year after year.
That's what gets in the way. Perfect. Boy. Well, okay, that's a lot right there, isn't it? But that could be straightened out. That's the wonderful part of it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. I wonder now if you'd give us an example of someone who really doesn't have enough rational thinking and is very emotional most of the time.
Yes, well, it just goes from bad to worse. And the terrible effect on the children, not only if the husband is going to tolerate it, it's going to be difficult for him, but the terrible effect on the children, you know? Children need peace. They need emotional stability, they need emotional safety, they need peace. They need to know that everyone's going to be calm and okay 99.5% of the time. You know, and then if somebody's a little bit irritated, it can't be drama, it can't be screaming, and it certainly can't be, you know, violence. Maybe someone's a little miffed, a little irked, you know? That's about as much as most children's immune systems and nervous systems can tolerate. So, you know, think about that, everybody. You know, everybody has to really think about that and learn calmness, peacefulness, kindness.
I appreciate that. Boy, patience is huge, isn't it? Well, now, boy, that's great. And an example of the family and all that energy, you really want to pay attention. Is there, let's say, a really clear example of someone else who doesn't have rational thinking and who is creative, and how that has been, let's say, terribly expensive for her?
Yeah, because people who are creative have a tendency to want a lot of freedom. And people who want a lot of freedom have a lot of trouble in a marriage. That's the most difficult type. Somebody who's very upper right-brained, visionary, artistic, creative, freedom-loving person, because they hate being married. And they will do almost anything to get out of it. And if they want to get out of it and they're angry and they want freedom, so very right-brained, lower right, upper right, they don't usually stop long enough to figure out how they're going to live, how they're going to survive, where the money's coming from. And, you know, when I was married to my second husband, he's a therapist, and he would come home and say, oh, I just worked with 3 patients today, and all of them wanted a divorce. They all wanted to leave their husbands. And I said, I hope, this was years before I did this, I said, I certainly hope that you sat there with an adding machine and said to them, where is your rent going to come from? Where is the food on your children's table and your table going to come from? And if they didn't have an answer that was real and practical, I hope you told them to get some more skills somewhere. You know, so this is how this all started for me. This started long, long time before I started this company, because I would see people making the most impractical, frightening decisions.
I love that. So there you go. From there, here she is today. That's huge. Some detective work and really thinking things through.
Simple addition and subtraction.
Yeah, the facts.
Is the ink red? Is the ink black?
Oh, I wish I had this knowledge many years ago.
Yes.
Well, I know you must have, let's say, thousands of stories about people who contact you about problems and, of course, about their spousal child support. Can you tell us, let's say, how a lack of this logical thinking was behind one of your clients' alimony?
Yeah, again, another woman who decided she just had it. She was just done. And she makes a goodly amount of money. She really does. But her husband was very, very wealthy. And it wasn't money that he earned during their time together. It was inherited money. And inherited money, it's not considered in divorce. So she had many options to work with him and work with a mediator and stick with it and really get a better deal. And she didn't, because she was so disgusted, and she just didn't think about how it would feel 5, 10, 15, and 20 years later. She was in a very long-term marriage. She was in a 20-plus year marriage. And that's the problem. You know, you get easily, you feel so disgusted about something that your partner may have done. This is for women or men. You feel disgusted and you just want to throw in the towel and you just want to walk out. And that's all well and good as long as you have, you know, enough millions of dollars.
Yes.
You can leave, but otherwise,
Put on the brakes and give Susan a call.
please, please.
Save yourself and your sanity. A very nice awareness. So how about let's explore someone who is emotional and even very creative, yet following the facts and taking preventive action, let's say, is possible for her until she studied with you.
Yeah, it's just skills, you know. It's just a matter of skills. So whether I'm the divorce coach and I'm the secret weapon and nobody knows about me except the client I'm working with, or whether I'm the mediator, it really doesn't change anything because I'm always looking for fairness. I'm always looking for, you know, a legitimate solution based on real financial information. And it's always about motivating and inspiring. So the particular case we're talking about here is a woman who was married to a guy who had a substance abuse problem. And he hadn't worked in years. I mean, he hadn't worked in about 7 years. And we had a CPA who I recommended run the numbers for her. And at the point, if she had gotten a divorce that right then and there, she owed him $250,000 because she'd been supporting him for all these years. She made $150,000 a year. She had 2 houses that she'd bought. She had not done the paperwork properly, so the money she'd inherited from her parents was kind of mixed in with his. She'd made some very bad decisions. And she didn't have $250,000 to pay him. So we worked together, she and I, and you know, she paid me a fraction, a tiny fraction of that amount of money to train her. And she learned how to motivate and inspire her husband, who she cared about. He got sober. He got a job. He was actually earning $175,000 a year, so more than she was. Amazing. And then she renegotiated with my help, and she paid him about $100,000 and divorced him. But they stayed friends. He now was, you know, on the wagon. He had a job. It was a whole different story.
Oh, I like that. So it's a happy ending, even if it was finally separating. Oh my gosh, and peaceful. Nobody got hurt.
Yeah. And this was a case where I was brought in because another mediator was handling it. And they were having such trouble that the mediator, who's a friend, asked me to come in as the divorce coach. And at this point, he was sitting there. He wouldn't even talk.
A lot of
And
issues.
we got him all the way over. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's a transformation right there.
It was wonderful.
Ooh, you broke through. Well, I'm curious now, do you meet many women who really feel angry and resentful about their husbands when in fact it was the wives' lack of planning and staying safe and being financially practical that created their problems?
You know, it's very easy to be a backseat driver. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's very easy to be a backseat driver. You know, it's very tempting. And if you start down this road, it's a very slippery slope. And as soon as I'm able to explain to the woman that she opted out of having a career, she opted out of this, she opted out of that. You know, it isn't helpful to criticize the driver if you can't drive. It's a really dangerous thing because the driver could just as soon pull over and open the car door and get you out of the car. You know, how many men or people are willing to tolerate this kind of constant criticism? So I teach them that that strategy doesn't work. They're angry because they haven't succeeded in motivating and inspiring their partner. They need to learn how to motivate and inspire their partner. They need to learn it immediately. And that's what we work on.
And that is lovely because it gets the results and you have the vocabulary
And everybody's
yeah,
peaceful.
we need the skills.
Everybody's peaceful, everybody's happy.
Everybody wins. Now, I know that sometimes people really do want peace and they just say, yes, 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 I'm familiar with this tune. And finally, their life becomes impossible. And I'm wondering, how can they keep the peace without giving up everything?
Well, Gigi,
Oh my.
you said it on live television, right? On live television. So you have to learn how to give someone empathy instead of saying yes or no. You have to learn, that's what we all have to learn, you know? If somebody says, will you do such and such volunteer work? They don't want to hear no, but you don't necessarily want to say yes. Well, Bob, I know that it's really important to you to staff the soup kitchen this weekend, and I know that this is the most important thing to you, and I imagine you're asking me because you know I expressed an interest 6 months ago when we talked about it. And Bob says, yes, yes, yes. So are you free on Saturday? You know, I so regret that I'm not. I'm going to be unavailable this weekend. And I'm perfectly happy to ask a couple of my friends. Maybe one of them would love to do it. Would that be helpful?
Perfect example of empathy and getting your needs met in the process. Thank you for that huge reminder. Note to self once again. It starts with us, but boy, it's well needed with others. Well, let's explore this. I know that you do indeed specialize in reconciliation for any type of relationship. And is there a way that that can also turn around marriages?
Yes, of course. If you look back at your partner's needs when you met and married, and you look at the ways you met those needs, you may not be able to meet those needs in the same way. Let's say it's 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So you may not be able to meet the needs in exactly the same way, but you understand what the person's needs were. And you need to find ways to meet those needs. Or if the partner has changed, maybe your partner's very different now, then you need to clarify for yourself what the new needs are, and you need to find ways to meet those needs. But they have to be ways that also work for you. And that's what reconciliation is. Reconciliation is not a lot of gobbledygook words. It's not about the words. It's about understanding the needs and meeting the needs. You know, if you have a need for somebody who's peaceful and kind around you, which you do and I do, then someone who's not peaceful and kind, they don't have a chance.
Yes.
Maybe they used to be peaceful and kind, but if they're not now, it's hopeless. So either they've got to figure out what happened to their moods and fix them, or pack their bags. So it's certain non-negotiable needs. So if you understand the needs, the whole relationship turns around. Because apologies really don't get anybody anywhere.
There we go. That's the magic, that connection, focusing on the needs.
Yeah. And it's fine. If people don't want to meet your needs, certainly after 20, 30 years, they may have had enough, but they need to be really straightforward. You know, I'm no longer willing to XYZ. You know, and I'm sure we can find a way to peacefully separate and peacefully divorce. We'll be fair, we'll be respectful, we'll, you know, do it with a mediator. We don't want to spend all the money on attorneys. We'll get through this.
That's the ultimate. Well, I hope everyone's taking notes. I know I am in this process because we all have the same needs, basically. So that's the beauty of it, really. When you see, let's say, a young wife or a young mother struggling to create that peace and cooperation, what is the underlying issue?
You know, young mothers, they're just starting this whole new thing. And most of them don't take mothering lessons. They may take diaper lessons. You know, they may take, you know, emergency medical first aid for a baby lessons, but they don't take creating peace with your baby and your spouse lessons. And that's what they really need. That's what they desperately need. So a lot of mothers and fathers have a real confusion about respect. You know, it is not our job to meet their needs for respect. It is not our job to meet anyone's need for respect. It is our job to express appreciation for people who meet our needs. And if it's true at our ages now, Gigi, it was never more true than when we were infants. So a baby naturally loves whoever is the caretaker, just as a pet does. You know, dogs are more affectionate than cats, but cats will come and rub against you, and children are very affectionate to caretakers who are peaceful, calm, dependable, supportive, nurturing, and loving. And you know the old adage, well, you know, if your children, you know, and your dog like the guy, he's probably an okay person.
That's a big one right there. Mm-hmm. Thank you for pointing that out. See, doesn't it sound simple?
That's right, and it is. It really is.
Exactly. Practice, practice. Well, okay, how about this? Can you give us a key to generating a safe and practical long-term relationship?
Yes, you have to have a lot of skills to motivate and inspire people. You cannot get there without it. You have to also be able to bring yourself to peace no matter what is going on. You know, the only mother who's going to be successful as a mother is one who's able to handle whatever happens during the day and then be fairly, you know, calm and collected when her partner comes home from work if it's a traditional marriage. Or if she's working herself, when she comes home at the end of the day, she's got to be able to be peaceful enough to connect with her children. That's the number one thing.
Absolutely. So once again, it starts with ourselves. Mm-hmm. And once we get these skills, how nice it can be with anyone else.
Yes, exactly.
Good reminder. Now, I'm curious, what if the partner begins to have serious troubles with their health or finances, another area of your specialty, addiction solutions?
Yeah. Well, that's when you have to be 100 times better at bringing yourself back to peace. You know, so if you need to be peaceful and handle whatever happens in a normal family, in a normal scenario, imagine now if the spouse is really ill, seriously, traumatically ill, and maybe hospitalized, and maybe not working. So that's what is the common denominator of a great marriage. And from there, you can bring in experts, whether they're, people like me who, teach the family to handle the addiction, get somebody into detox recovery if needed, all those things. But we need one family member who's able to be peaceful and intelligent and practical and functional. So that's what each of us has to learn to do, whether we want to be in a great relationship or not.
Well, that would make life way more wonderful, even for ourselves, of course.
Because that's the key to a disastrous marriage. A disastrous marriage is a disaster because neither partner has enough skills.
But of course, like you say, with one dedicated person, it can all work out.
Absolutely.
How encouraging is that? Well, that gives me a lot of hope for my next relationship. Oh, thank you, Susan. I know we're going to take a moment now. Whew, you got me all heated up on that. We're going to go into a clip with Reverend Bernard Goodman. And this is fascinating. Once again, he's going to explore his thoughts of UFOs with us.
I want to share an awareness that was given to me in the most unusual way. I work in this room where there are several other people, one of them named George. She knows who George is. And when he first came to work there, he didn't know anything about UFOs or ETs or any of this stuff, Thanks to Bernard and his big mouth, George became, what would you call it, extremely interested in that stuff. So he would go on his computer and bring up all these things that Bernard could never find in a computer, all these things about UFOs and ET and stuff like that. And one time Bernard was walking past, because he has to walk past him to get to the door to go leave the room, and on the screen on his TV were all these night sightings of UFOs with the lights. And what was brought to Bernard's mind for the first time was, why do they do that? Why do they intentionally show themselves at night? Why would they do that? Daytime, you know, they come and go, you see. But at night, where they can be totally blacked out, and they don't, they have all their lights on, why do they do that? Intentionally. Because they're visiting their human family that's on the ground. And more people are going to get that, especially after they read my book. Because that is the future of this planet. People are going to discover where they came from. And how these UFOs that are flying all over the place are actually from their home planets, and they're probably families in ET form saying hello to them on the ground. I mean, at one time, thousands of sightings happened all at the same time. You can't deny something like that. And then, of course, in the 2012 Olympics in London, they actually took over thunder and lightning, created thunder and lightning. If they could do that, they could do anything. And so what is happening is more and more sightings are occurring everywhere, all over the world. I mean, everywhere, all over the world. Mexico, Israel, to my surprise, Israel, England, and every other country you could think of. And every city and state you could probably think of, they have been appearing more and more, all right? And different designs, you know, round and triangle and cigar shape and all that other stuff, which I don't understand, but that's what they do.
A crop circle just appeared in California. It was on the news last night.
Where?
Yes.
Where?
Oh, forgive me, I don't remember. But a crop circle just appeared, a really big one. And it was just on the news yesterday.
Can we find that on?
So, yeah, I can find it.
Can you guys do that on your internet thingy? Which is interesting because, again, more and more of what they call ETism is going to become more and more apparent to more and more people throughout this year and beyond, of course, because it's the future of this planet, where they're going to eventually be living alongside us, like in a number of movies.
And this crop circle was really strange looking because it had all those kind of like strange irregular teeth, as if it were a gear, you know, as if you would put something into it and it would, you know, lock it somewhere. Here.
Yeah, I got to see what it looks like. Oh, this is sacred geometry, advanced sacred geometry. Yeah, pass it around. See, things are above the earth, sticking up above the earth, and these are sacred geometry symbols of future landings.
Future landing.
Future landings, yes, of course. Why would they be there if not going to be future landings? I mean, yeah, future landings. Just like in my movie. What?
Salinas, thank you.
Salinas, California?
When did it happen? When was it? When did it happen?
Yeah, yesterday, I think.
On
Day
Monday.
before.
Yeah, Monday. I just
Monday.
went through this.
Was that Northern California?
Monday.
Okay. Interesting of all places.
Yesterday.
What other town is Salinas near that we might know?
Monterey.
Oh, Monterey?
Yeah, it's fairly close to
Wait a minute, I was in Salinas. What am I
But
talking
I
about?
love it. Salinas is really magical.
I was there.
Salinas is
I went to my nephew's wedding in Calistoga, and it's on the way to Calistoga, and I stayed at Santa Rosa. So yeah, okay, thank you. See, I don't even know what planet I'm on. Anyway, but interesting that we'll be there.
We were going in and out, these other dimensions.
Well, yeah, we're all doing that. And there are going to be more of these coming up throughout the year. I mean, the Earth is going to be covered with all these different kind of landing sites. It's interesting because it's in my book, in my movie rather. Anyway, so you people are going to be involved with this kind of thing, with landings, with educating the masses to what the higher truth is all about in your own specific geographies. You live where?
Bay Area, San Jose, Palo Alto.
South of San Francisco.
Yes.
You live in Palo Alto? I was in aerospace, and we did a whole bunch of things in Palo Alto. Well, what do they call that? The whole area?
Ames. Oh, NASA Ames.
No.
Silicon Valley.
Thank you, Silicon Valley. Yes. Why is the whole valley made of silicon?
He works in that industry. Excuse me. Or maybe,
What?
many people work in that industry.
Okay. Yeah, we did a lot of stuff up there, Palo Alto and all those things. Anyway, outside of Palo Alto, there's a large area of nothingness, just plain land. You know, does that make sense to you? Are you familiar with that at all?
Outside of Palo Alto.
Yeah, outside of Palo Alto.
Silicon Valley, there's a lot of.
Okay, well, on one of those flat land plats, there's going to be some kind of crop circle or landing site created on the ground. These are all beacons, by the way.
Sea level, right.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Susan, for letting us know about Bernard and these crop circles. And I mean, these clips are so informative. He really has a gift, and thank you for sharing the information behind it. She is the hostess that allows Bernard to share with all these people throughout the years. So that's a treat. Now we're going to continue on with you. We have a lot more to explore. And I'm curious if you could share with us, where does addiction fit into this, and how do those type of marriages actually survive or be saved?
You know, I've worked with so many couples where one of them becomes an addict in the course of the relationship. And there was always some hint of it, it seems. In every single case, there was always some hint of some addiction in the early days of dating, but the client who's not an addict really didn't understand. So I say, well, you really need an addiction education. So part of what I do is I give that spouse an addiction education so that they can, A, really understand, you know, whatever the addiction, alcohol, drugs, sex addiction, gambling addiction, on and on. And the common denominator, as we've talked in previous shows, is that that person who's an addict is always living on an emotional roller coaster. So before someone picks up a drug or picks up a glass of alcohol, there's always a moodiness that's underlying, a hopelessness, which may be caused by diabetes or a pre-diabetic condition. It may be strictly biochemical. So I have referrals that handle that. And then the spouse who is not using anything needs to have new skills, needs to be able to really reassure and calm that person. And we've had amazing results. And I told you before the show, I'm working with a family right now, and the guy who has been drinking since he was a teenager, and he's, you know, fully grown up man now, and he stopped drinking after 2 sessions with me. And it continues. He said it's not easy, but he's addressing it as a blood sugar issue. So we've talked about different things he can do, what he can, you know, eat and drink first thing in the morning, what he can eat and drink later in the day. There's a whole component of baked potatoes because it's starch, and the starch breaks down very slowly. And baked potatoes help people give up alcohol. And there's a book about it, quite amazing. So there are so many different ways to support people so that even when addiction is ruining a marriage, it can be solved.
That is golden. Boy, thank you, Susan. That's awesome.
And you know, there's a contest between, is he going to get well fast enough, or is his wife going to sue him for divorce? You know, it's a time thing. So there's really a window that people can address.
Oh my gosh. And with your encouragement, I'm sure they're willing to change. And oh, that's great. Let us know how that goes. That
bet.
sounds like another success story. Now, what part of these problems is indeed linked to brain wiring and a lack of that whole brain thinking?
Well, everyone who has a problem with temper is not thinking in a very practical and safe way, because, you know, people who pick fights are going to end up in a lot of different kinds of trouble, you know, the worst of which would be prison. But, you know, when I worked in the jail and did workshops in jail, these are no different from the people. Maybe there's an economic difference in many cases, but not always. So these are just people who don't know how to stop themselves from losing their temper. You know, because nowadays there are laws. If people lose their temper, someone's going to call 911. Maybe not the first time, maybe not every time, but someone's going to call 911. So that's the biochemical part of it. But brain wiring would force them to stop, freeze in their tracks before they lift their fist, right?
Yes.
And if they don't have brain wiring that is safety thinking brain wiring, they're going to allow themselves to use all sorts of addictive substances or just give vent to the underlying anger or the underlying grief or the underlying terror or fear, because those are the three negative emotions. So someone who's really frightened isn't violent, but they're not successful in life. Someone who's grief-stricken isn't violent, but they're not successful and they, in fact, may kill themselves if they don't get help. And someone who's angry, that's a lot of what we're talking about tonight, because that's where the other person in the house is so negatively affected, and the children as well.
Boy, that's a lot of information to take in, but something to pay attention to, absolutely. Oh, what a difference you can make. That's really great. Well, now I'm curious, how do you work with each of these people so that they really, in fact, do learn to create that peaceful and powerful life? And I guess for an example, let's explore this. Any young mother who is either feeling angry or that sadness on a regular basis, how would you go about helping her?
Well, the first thing is, you know, the saliva and urine at-home test is just so brilliant. Because, you know, a young mother may think she's angry because her child did or didn't. She may think she's angry because her husband did or didn't, or if she's got a nanny, or if she's got a neighbor, or if she's got parents or in-laws or anybody. Because someone who's angry, if they haven't really been trained, they're going to think they're angry because everybody else is doing the wrong thing. So the very first thing when they have the saliva and urine test, they look at the results, they go, oh my goodness, it's me. Wow. Oh. Ooh. Oops. You know, oh. And then they can do something about it. They can take the supplements. They're affordable, they're safe, they make a huge difference. As the person's adrenals are balanced, they start to produce more neurotransmitters. As they get more precursors to the neurotransmitters in their system, and all of this can be explained by Mary at O Vitamin Pro or many doctors far better than I could, they just start to feel better. They feel calmer. At the same time, I'm teaching them how to calm themselves down before they speak. The supplements make it easier, but the supplements don't give them the skills.
Exactly.
So they can be really calm, but if they don't know how to speak in a calming way to others, if they don't know how to be rational and logical about what's happening, they're not going to create cooperation.
They need that vocabulary, don't they?
You bet.
We all do. Oh, well, that's what our show's about. I love it. Well, how about this little situation about a woman that's desperate for a fast divorce? How can she learn from you to really slow down that process so that she can have that better outcome?
Well, usually when somebody who's desperate for something, and they want to do it right away, there's already a problem brewing, right? You know, I mean, who's going to desperately fill out their tax return and stick it in the mail, right? Nobody. You know, who's going to desperately buy a prom dress if they're young, or a wedding dress? Nobody. Nobody's going like, you know, nobody handles important things that way. Well, a divorce is one of the most important things that anyone can ever do, because there are so many skills, so many different kinds of financial information, because a divorce is just a financial situation. It's not a legal situation. It's just that there are laws about the money. There are laws about custody. There are laws about child support. There are laws about spousal support. There are laws about property. But it's not a legal problem. And so this is where they need a good CPA trained in divorce components, who's had a lot of experience. There's nobody else who's qualified to give people really the best advice about what's going to happen in their divorce. And that's the first thing I tell them, you know. I can help you get a peaceful agreement, but first we've got to find out what you're really entitled to and what your partner's entitled to, what the children are entitled to. And so I spend all my time, you know, on that, teaching them what's really appropriate and not rushing in.
Oh, I like that. So even if you feel desperate, don't go to that point of acting out in that desperate
Sure,
state.
because they'll feel a lot more desperate if they don't get a good deal. You know, it's like people who say, you know, they went to the doctor and they got tests and they just need they need to know what. No, they don't need to know. They need to know that it's negative. If it's going to take the doctor 5 days to give you a test that's negative, you're going to want that. You don't want them to call you, God forbid, and I don't mean you, but someone else. You don't want to find out in 24 hours bad news. So this is, again, the same kind of thing. People aren't really thinking clearly.
Okay, now I'm paying attention to that even. Thank you, Susan. Boy, helping us to understand what is in our own best interest, that on top of everything. Now, let's explore this. When a man or a woman is really sad and scared and can't move forward, either to turn around the marriage or even leave the marriage, how can you help that?
Well, again, somebody who's on an emotional roller coaster can't make good choices. So when you calm someone down, whether I'm doing the calming or they're learning from me how to calm their spouse, when you calm down, you can then be led through careful, clear decision making. And that is the key to life. You know, if you've seen the way a 5-year-old grocery shops, it's not something that you really would feel comfortable about, you know. Let's go get cereal, let's go get candy, let's go get ice cream, let's go get soda, right? No, you can't live life that way. Maybe once in a while for a birthday party, but you can't live that way. And it's the same thing. People who are desperate, people who are frantic, people who are angry, people who are sad cannot make decent decisions and should make none. Should make absolutely no decisions. Find a way to postpone it. And then when they're calm, then they can understand, they can listen to me, they can listen to a good CPA, they can really understand, or work with me and turn the situation around. Most marriages can be saved. Almost every marriage can be saved.
That's very encouraging.
But the people who are committed to saving it need a lot of new skills, a lot of training. So when people say, I don't know if I want to save my marriage or get a divorce, I say, well, you need the same skills either way. It's fine.
Put.
It's
Perfect.
fine. You want a peaceful divorce? You need a lot of skills. You want to reconcile with your spouse? You need a lot of skills. It's okay.
Beautifully said. Thank you. There we go. We can use this help regardless. Now, I'm curious, is there a time when one of the spouses may have symptoms of extreme illness that you really can help, you can help the family?
Sure, because in the example of the man that I mentioned before, I was called to help him get a peaceful divorce. But in the conversation that I had with him, I found out that that was not the problem. The problem was the drinking. As soon as I found out that he had this problem, I knew what we had to solve. And so the conversation I had with his family was about that, how to solve that. The conversation I had with him was about that. And I finessed for information. I didn't obviously accuse him. I finessed, well, is it possible that, you know, maybe there's da, 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 da. And he admitted it. Very sweet guy, lovely, lovely guy. Very intelligent, sweet, lovely guy. And he admitted what this confusion had been, and we talked about it, and I said, you know, whether you get a divorce or don't get a divorce, you cannot live this way. It's much too dangerous. The price is much too high, and it's pretty easy if I can teach you some skills for you to turn this around. And if you turn it around quickly instead of slowly, you might be able to save your marriage. So it turned out that that was the whole issue, and we're working on that.
Good detective work.
Yes, yeah. People are interesting about that.
Yes.
You have to really look.
Yes. Well, she knows how to do this. Well, gosh, we're getting down on time, but this is
Okay.
a really quick one that, well, it's complicated. Here we go. I know that your clients have great results, and that very quickly, often within weeks, you show them really how to turn around their difficult relationships. Can you list some of these skills that you offer them?
Yes. Number one, they must learn the 6-part conversation. Self-empathy to calm themselves down, empathy to calm the other partner down, self-expression to speak about solutions in a peaceful, motivating way. They must also learn Herrmann Brain Dominance, so they understand the different ways they think and their partner thinks and how different it is, and that there's no right and there's no wrong. It's just different. And then finally, I want them to learn the 4 questions of inquiry so they can stop making up stories and torturing themselves with it. And so if they stop making up stories, then they stop creating fights. If they stop creating fights, they can begin to create peace.
That is beautiful. Right there. What a formula. Well, Susan, I just love all this information. I know we have more to explore, but another night. And I really thank you so much. You've shown us how to, let's say, even go through those most difficult and frightening marriages and create that more peace and cooperation, the financial stability in every single case. And I'd just like to remind the audience that you have this wonderful opportunity to contact Susan for her free 1-hour gift of consultation with you, and she will at least teach you one of these skills during that call. So, boy, take the time. It's a win-win. There's no doubt about it. And it's a lot to take in, but you make it easy. Thank you so much, Susan. Now, for our viewers, I would just like to share with you that Susan Allan's column, the Ask the Love and Relationship Coach, in the Santa Barbara Family Life magazine, is now available online as well, and that's at www.sbfamilylife.com. I just love your articles in there. They're
Thank you.
fascinating. Every month I run to pick one up. What advice today? Now you can get that free hour with Susan at 805-695-8405. And Susan's email is susan@susanallen.org. And her YouTube is youtube.com/user/Susan Allen 2001. So don't hesitate, go for that gift. It will be highly informative, as she always is. What a joy. now I'm going to continue on that we are here live every Tuesday night from 8 till 9, and throughout the week, various times, many surprising ones. I know that you can look us up and find out. We're in our 9th year, and we really appreciate hearing from all of you that have enjoyed and been inspired by the show and are going forward and evolving in your lives as well with some of our wonderful guests, such as Susan tonight. Now, if you do have some questions, concerns, or challenges in your personal life, we'd really appreciate hearing from you. We'd really be interested. You can give us a call, 805-698-8233, or an email. I'm going to read over those later tonight, ggmor@cox.net. And you can also check out these shows and the wonderful guests, Susan's information, take some more notes, compassionateconnection.tv. Now next week our guest will be Dr. Robert Mathis, and he'll be sharing with us ways to take care of our bodies. We all need to do that, don't we? But I would just like to say a special thank you to my sponsor that curls my hair. I just really appreciate Makeup and Hair by Salon D. This is Debbie, and she's located here in Santa Barbara. Her information is up there, and she's got the touch. Very inspiring, wonderful girl. Thank you, Debbie. And here in our studio, we'd like to always say thank you to Matt, to Mark, so many others that contribute to our show and helping us. It's been a joy. And here our personal TV team, our director, Fred Winter. We love you, Fred. I don't know what you're thinking of us tonight, but thank you. You are awesome. Always here, always on it. And Tyler Gett, oh my gosh, he's our audio support and so much more right here in the studio. And for our viewers, I would just like to wish all of you a very, very joyful life, and please check out Susan and other people that can be of help and benefit your having a more wonderful life. Thank you for viewing, and good evening.